It's Thursday, 11 o'clock. It's time for this week's Watch Drop. The theme this week is shaped watches. We've got a really interesting array of different shapes of watches on the table this week, and some of them I'm really quite excited about. The interesting thing about them is that some of them are actually much more affordable than you might think. So let's take a look at them. We'll jump in first with the Chaumet Jump Hour. It's a particularly special piece. Not just because, as of Watches and Wonders this year, Tanker Guichet was the watch that everyone wanted and actually had a ripple effect amongst other brands, including even Bremont. If you look back through the annals of watch design, the Chaumet Jump Hour was one of those watches that was created in that neo-vintage period. And it stands, I think, head-to-head with anything that Cartier have produced. Now, I'm really excited to talk about this one. I love shaped watches anyway, but this has a sort of pebble-esque shape to it. Possibly more sort of flying saucer, actually, because the pebble makes you think that it's got a rounded edge to it. But actually, when you look at it on profile, it's much more a knife edge. But certainly from the front, it looks like a pebble. It's that the gold face of the watch is punctured by two guichets, sort of windows, if you like. And one of them is a jump hour, and the other one is a sweeping minutes. I love the fact that the text, the font on each of those wheels is blue, which is just a perfect contrast to the yellow gold of the watch itself. The crown, I guess there's no other real way to describe it, but it's like a bullet tip. It's a very, very cool thing. And it's not a sapphire cabochon like you'd expect from a Cartier, and we'll come on to some of those in a moment. It's worth saying that there are many different types of these Chaumet Jump Hours, and of all of them, this is the one you want to go for. It's known as the jumbo size. It's a 35mm case, and it has an automatic movement. What's really interesting about that automatic movement is it was created by THA. And I've talked about THA a few times before, but THA was a group of watchmakers, including F.P. Journe, Denis Flageolet, and Vianney Halter. And actually, we have another of their watches on the table, which I'll move over to as well. But suffice to say, the Chaumet Jump Hours is very special indeed. And I don't think many people realise quite how special it is, because in large, it's a very rare watch. You don't see many of them. The ones that often come up are quartz or smaller dial size. I think the smaller version is about 30mm, whereas this watch as a full set is something that I've really never come across before. Very special watch. I wish I could buy that for myself, but now isn't the time. Anyway, let's move on. So I talked about THA, Vianney Halter, Denis Flageolet, F.P. Journe, and probably the most famous watch that they produced that people talk about time and time again is the Tortue Monpossoir from Cartier, the reference 2396. And I think of all of the different dial variations, the one that people think about the most is this one here, which is, wow, it's a crazy sharp example and a lovely, lovely full set actually. So I'm sure this one won't hang around at all. Brilliant, brilliant watch. Moving on, that shape there, the Monopossoir, is a tonneau. And it's interesting to see a tonneau shape from Patek Philippe. This is the reference 5098. It's a gondolo. The thing that you notice, particularly when you go from the Cartier, which is white gold, to this platinum piece from Patek, you pick it up and it weighs probably twice as much. It's just a huge chunk of platinum. It really is a hefty thing. What I love about this piece is that it's an elongated tortue shape and the numerals are sort of stretched out. It really feels like an Art Deco piece. It's a very monochrome look, and that's the reason why I actually quite like it on this strap. Normally, I'm the kind of guy that goes away from alligator straps, particularly in black. I like to dress watches down, but this one I think works so well. Just that monochrome silvery case and dial and the black indices and the strap. Also worth saying that the buckle on this is one that I've never come across before. It is the original from Patek. It is platinum. I just don't remember seeing that shape of buckle before, and it's really quite nice. Brilliant watch, actually. Really pleased to see it come in. It's always nice to see something a little bit different from Patek Philippe. I'm going to move on now to a shape which is probably one of my favourites. God, I've got so many favourites. Apologise for that. This is a Cartier Bagnoire. Now, it's a mid-size, it looks small, I promise you, and I'll put it on my wrist in a moment. It's a very wearable size. The Bagnoire, the shape is literally, I think, based around a bathtub. It's a funny old thing, only Cartier would do that. But this is a stepped Bagnoire case. It's the reference 78094, so it's actually a mid-size. There is a much smaller Bagnoire, and obviously there are bigger examples as well, and then you go into the Bagnoire Allongé, and we've had some of those in, and they're very, very stretched out. But this is kind of your midpoint. Lots of these watches are quartz. This one, I'm very pleased to say, is a very satisfying manual wind watch. It's a decent piece of watchmaking, and it has the original clasp, which is really nice and narrow. I think it's exactly the kind of watch that, well, let's say Tyler, the Creator, would wear. I think it's very, very cool. It's that classic combination of yellow gold, white dial, blued hands. It's just synonymous with Cartier dress watches, and it's a combination that's completely timeless. I'll put it on my wrist and you'll see how good it is. Hang on. Now, I don't know, I might be alone on this, but I think that is one of the coolest watches that you could wear with a suit. I absolutely adore it. I really, really do. And legibility is great. I think despite the fact that it looks like you're possibly wearing your grandma's watch, I would absolutely wear that. I really would. Cool thing. I'm going to move on to a value proposition, actually, that if, say, you're looking at that Bagnoire and thinking, I really like the look, but I want something that's a little bit more affordable. Well, this is a watch from a brand that we don't necessarily list very often, but it's a very special watch in its own right. It's a Dunhill, and it's an octagonal shape stretched out. Very interesting case shape, actually. Not just is the case faceted, but the crystal on top is very, very nicely shaped. Certainly angular, just to match the case shape itself. It's a manual wind, which I think is fairly rare for a Dunhill watch. You see lots of quartz examples. And this example is a limited edition for the 250th anniversary for Dunhill. So it's a 90s watch, and really interestingly that we've managed to track down a full set. It's solid yellow gold. It's got Breguet hands. It's got sort of Breguet adjacent printed numerals on it. But if you're looking for that sort of angular, small to mid-sized dress watch, and your budget doesn't stretch much above sort of the £4,000 to £5,000 mark, that's a really fantastic watch. I think it's really cool. It's got the original buckle. As I say, it comes with the box and the papers, which I think for a watch that's now over 30 years old is really quite surprising. I don't think it's been worn very much at all. It's a lovely thing. And it's just nice to see another case shape. We see lots of rounded cases and we see square cases, but do we see a sort of diamondy octagonal shape like that? I don't think we do. I really like it. I'm here for it. If you put Cartier on that dial, I think it'd probably be worth 10 times that price. The last watch I'm going to cover off, I'd argue, isn't particularly shapely, but it's very, very nice. It really is. And it sort of goes with this overall theme of interesting dress watches. This is a Rolex. It's a reference 6744. Now, it's a 30mm Oyster Perpetual, executed in 18 karat yellow gold. It has a Milanese type bracelet, but on the surface of that, if you look at the underside, you'll see the Milanese finish, but on the top, it's a very textured, sort of hammered finish. It's absolutely brilliant, and particularly supple. It just feels like silk. Not only is it a lovely, sharp example, but it's also finished with an Omani stamp on the dial. This one's green, which just goes so well with the yellow gold. And on the other side of the watch, on the case back, you see stamped KR, which is Kimji Ramada, I think it is. It's a dealer over in the Middle East, the equivalent of Asprey over here in the UK. I really like it. And one of the things that you'll realise when you get this watch in your hand is that because of the construction of the bracelet, although it's a 30mm watch, you'll see that it wears top to bottom much bigger than that dimension would make you believe. It feels much bigger because of the integrated bracelet. Very, very nice thing. And so lovely to see an honest example that has some lovely oxidation on the bracelet. But for me, the standout characteristic is that green Omani stamp and the KR engraved on the back. It's interesting. I look at this watch and it reminds me of all the reasons why I like the hunt for really special pieces like that. It's lived a life. It's got that oxidation, that patina on it, but it's also got such interesting characteristics about the dial and the case back and the bracelet. It's a very special thing, and it's exactly why I like collecting watches, finding all of these special little nuances that you just know you'll never see another one like it again. It's a very cool thing. I'm sure it won't hang around. So that's this week's drop. I think about 60 watches hitting the site this week, but a really interesting array of watches. I really need to be sitting on my credit card and trying not to buy all of them myself because I really could. There's one watch particularly that I didn't get to touch on, which is very special in its own right. It's the Gronefeld Principia, which is a 39mm independent watch with a brilliant blue dial. These have really come down to the price point where I think it's really quite an interesting proposition. So go check that out on the website. We also have our usual array of vintage Rolex and some really interesting pieces there too. Do hit the website, check it out, and I'll see you next week.